for Pursuit. I was just making sure that we had the recording going. It's giving me a different link than usual, but it looks like we're all set. We are recording and share. Yeah, okay, so we're all good. So welcome to everyone joining us today for Core Pursuit. It is our second session that we're going to be working on energy mapping. So we're going to actually be taking a look and see exactly kind of where we left off. We're going to expand on the topic. And again, energy mapping is really important because it's one of those tools that allows us to see, you know, where we're potentially leaving our energy off before we even get to business or get to relationships or get to, you know, time with our children, our nutrition, our health, and how important those different frameworks are within it. I mean, I can say that the majority of the time when we're having trouble with our actual energy levels, often it's about where we're focusing and where our mindset is. And I know, Rob, for you and Rob, welcome. I don't know if everyone can see Rob at home. Hopefully you can. Rob, do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi. So we've been trying to kind of adjust the video screen so you guys can see us a bit bigger. I don't know if it's working for you at home. So we'll continue to work on that. But what we're going to do is kind of work on today, look a little bit more in depth into a couple of the different formulas that support energetic mapping, because the mapping is designed to see not just where our strengths are, but where are some potential shortfalls, where are places that we might not be paying enough attention, or we're not really thinking about what we want in those areas. We're not being positive in those areas. And I can say what you're thinking about is vital for every one of us. I think it's so important to remember. I mean, the idea that there's multiple realities out there at any given time, for some people, you know, is ridiculous. Like the idea, no, it's objective. Everything, we're our own projectors, right? Like we're our own computers. Everything is going to be sifted and sorted based on who we are. So how I see any situation and how Rob sees it or anyone else sees a situation is going to be slightly different, because I might have grown up in a different town than Rob, and I might have had a different family upbringing, different professional experience, whatever it is. Maybe I raised my children differently, right? Who knows? So all of those things are going, and my beliefs, my experiences are all going to be so vital for how I'm going to interpret my world. And I can't say enough for how important this is for success in any area of our lives. A big part of energy mapping is how am I perceiving these areas of my life, and what am I doing about it to make them better instead of falling victim. And falling victim is, again, you know, I either have a net cast over me, which is falling victim. There's nothing I can do about it. It's somebody else's fault. I'm going to blame somebody else. I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to criticize them, but I'm never going to take responsibility. Versus, hey, I can plant seeds and I can nurture them. And yeah, they might take longer than I wanted, and they might come from different sources than I wanted, but I'm an active participant in building my life. And not only, like, some people are scared of that responsibility, right? They're scared of taking on and saying, hey, I'm in charge of this. What I do actually creates an outcome, and anything is a lesson or it's a success. Either way, I get something beneficial from it. But I'd say it's an amazing transition. And Rob, would you find, like most people in your work, you know, with mindset and coaching, what would you say, like how vital would you say the awareness that we can choose different realities is? Like how big do you think of a concept that is for most people?
Kathleen, I honestly think that that's probably the absolute most crucial and most important thing to almost everything we choose to do in our lives. And I always say to people that when they come and see me, that right off the bat, there's going to be no excuses. And that's the reason I say that, is I want to get them into that mind frame that you're talking about, that there isn't going to be an excuse. We're going to take control of our own mindset and choose the direction that we go in moving forward, and always continuing to move forward rather than, you know, staying where we are in those beliefs and values that we've set up for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward. And like you said, no excuses. It is a transition, right? It's not something that most people are naturally raised. Like they say, it's the 1% of population, right, who are actively, and I hope it's growing, I hope those numbers have changed, but are actively trying to live consciously and be aware of, hey, what am I thinking? What am I doing? How does that play a part in here? what I'm thinking isn't just what's going on, it's just something my brain may be programmed to think. And if I can interrupt it and say, hey, wait a minute, is there another way to look at this? Is there another reality? Just that is making room. Just that is saying, oh, okay, maybe I have a choice about what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking about. And all of that is behind the energy mapping side of things. For anybody who's had, you know, a health, I'm just going to go over to our map so it's in front of us here, any type of a health issue, or they've had difficulty again with relationships, parents, friends, coworkers, children, you can very easily relate to how much energy that can actually take from us before we ever even hit into career and business. And I'm the first one to say there's no way that I'd be able to, you know, run a company like I do now, work with other coaches, other teams. There's no way I'd be able to do that to the extent I am now if I was still involved in some of the relationships I had in the past. Like maybe those are family members, maybe those are the relationships I used to sometimes have with my children. Like very tiring, right? Very difficult. So we all have only so much energy in the day, only so much time in the day. And a big piece of this is for all of you listening saying, oh, well, it's a matter of discipline. You know, if you have self-discipline, you'll do things right. If you have willpower, you'll do things right. The research shows consistently, willpower is like a muscle. You can flex it and you can use it until it's exhausted. And when it's exhausted, it's done. Energy is not infinite. I know there's this idea you can tap into this infinite energy source. And in some ways you can. I mean, I could be, you know, infinitely more energized than somebody beside me, but I still have a cap for my personal energy levels in my life. So remember, willpower, if we're trying to have success in these different areas of my life, if I go to work all day and I have to use so much willpower because I have to stay so disciplined, so focused, I'm so hard on myself that when I come home to my house, I'm probably not gonna have any willpower left. So if, for example, I have junk food all over the house and, you know, there's something else that I could go and do, I'm probably going to be, my energy levels are going to be weak and I'm more susceptible to saying yes to things around me because I've exhausted all my willpower in another area of my life. And I might be more, this is why sometimes people are more snappy when they come home, right? People like they're unhappy, they're always grumpy. If you're in an environment where you're constantly having to put so much stress and exertion to be able to be successful, you're probably depleting all those stores in that any one place. And that could be in relationship, again, in your health, wherever it is. So as a reminder, with energy mapping, as you start to kind of learn this, it's so very vital because this is the flow that we're going through. So we start again our day and we either have 20% energy stores, we've got 100% energy stores. And I think that the power of consciousness is we create ideal environments to be at high energy. We also create ideal environments to be at low energy or to be at mid energy levels. So it's not necessarily that anyone naturally wakes up and is super energized or super not energized. It came from somewhere. And that's where the consciousness comes from. Did I stay up really late, you know, out partying on a Wednesday night? I doubt that would happen, but let's just say. And then I had to get up the next morning. Not a surprise that my energy is low. But it's not as obvious to us if, you know, I stayed up watching some horror movie with my kid. Well, I wouldn't watch that with my kids, or Walking Dead or something like that. And that's what I'm feeding my mind. And now I wake up in the morning and I wake up late and I'm rushing all around. I'm grumpy because I got to push the kids out the door. It's not by accident that I'm now going to feel more stressed. I'm going to have more anxiety. I'm going to be more reactive because that's how I set my tone for my day. The same as those of us who wake up in the morning and have exercise routines, meditation, or focused thought routines, you're setting yourself up for success to have higher energy stores. Exercise and focused thought creates alignment, which creates more of that internal energy for us, which is important. So we wake up, we either have 100% stores, 20% stores, whatever it is. And then again, we're going to go through this quicker because we did it last time, that we're going to build on it today. Then we're going to hit relationships. So relationships with myself, first and foremost, relationships with loved ones, coworkers, whatever it is. And either those relationships are going to be a huge hurdle, a huge block in my life, and I'm going to have to deal with them, and they're going to exert a ton of energy, or they're going to make my life easier. They're going to make my life better. They're going to help me to flow through and do what I feel I need to do or what I'm meant to do in that particular day. And again, that relationship could be ourselves. And I think an important piece here is some people learn this and they'll say, yeah, you know what? I did that energy mapping, and I really had this awareness of how much energy my relationship's taking from me. I don't think it's a good relationship. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I need a divorce. Maybe I need a separation. Maybe I just need to leave. If you're not married, you have that option, right? I guess everyone does. But anyway, so they think that the power of energy mapping is not to ever remember, if I'm blaming, criticizing, complaining, all of those things, then I'm not in a leadership position, right? I'm in a place where I'm actually thinking that, oh, I have no choice in the matter. The power of this is to say, wow, if I approach that relationship differently, if I did something differently, I might get a different result. And until I've spent that time figuring out how am I showing up in this situation, I probably am not even at the point yet to look at the other side, unless it's, you know, of course, like something abusive or harmful, of course, for sure, we're not talking about that, okay? But really important that this is a self-awareness tool. It's not a tool to judge everyone else around me. I doubt anyone on this would ever do that, but I think sometimes those thoughts can come to mind. So I'm going to flow up from the relationships, and what am I doing to contribute to health? What am I doing to make sure that my mental health is strong, my emotional health is strong, my physical health is strong? Because all of these things are going to be dealt with before I ever get again to career and business. And this is why it's so vital that if I think I'm a type A person and I'm going to sacrifice, you know, my nutrition, my sleep, my gym time, my own personal quiet time to recharge, because I'm sacrificing it for business, the sad part is eventually when all those other pillars go out, guess what happens to your business? I don't know, Rob, if you've probably seen that in your business, but when people try to be so hyper-focused on business success and they just like, I don't need to pay attention to that. That doesn't matter to me. This is what matters to me. Eventually, Rob, what do you notice kind of happens? I'll see what you think, but
everything starts to go backwards and slowly crumble into more negative rather than the positive.
Yeah, exactly. And crumble is exactly the word I was going to use. I mean, having clients call me at times and saying, hey, like I'm going to get a divorce. My partner wants to leave me. And I'm going, oh my gosh. And of course, I'm just taken aback. I'm concerned for them. But I've also had a lot of clients say, well, you know, I love the business, right? Like I live the business. I breathe the business. Like I eat like the business on the road. And this is where I am. And unfortunately, because they still thought even then that they didn't have to tend to this situation, it got worse and worse and worse. And sometimes until they did lose those relationships and had to kind of face that, right? So very, very difficult. And some of them maybe were happier. They weren't in the right relationship. But the point here is that if we're not conscious and paying attention to the other areas of our life, they are going to pay us. They're going to bring more and more awareness into our life, which is going to feel quite painful, which is very difficult for most people. Which leads us to, of course, what's left over is our prosperity and abundance. It's always a value exchange. The more value I can bring to the market, the more solutions I can bring, the easier I can make it for people to make choices, overcome problems, the more value I bring out means the more prosperity that I'm going to get in my personal life and at a business level as well. So it's really vital that we're paying attention to what energy am I actually bringing up into my systems, into my business, into my branding? What is actually flowing there to make that a vehicle for me to be prosperous? It's not going to make me prosperous on its own. It's how I show up. It's what I believe in. It's what my intentions are. That's where we have an energized, passionate business. We know our mission. We know our purpose, right? We know our values and our vision in a business. Really, really vital. And physical universe, is of course the premise that the physical universe does not lie. Again, if I'm a lot of our business is done in real estate. If I'm in real estate and I'm saying, oh, my business is going great, you know, everything's fantastic, I'm so happy. But you look at the deal board, I don't have any deals. You look at my trade, I haven't done anything. There's no income coming in. The physical universe is a mirror. It's saying, hey, you can plant seeds. It might take 60 to 90 days for them to come to fruition. But if you're saying everything's going great and you're looking around you and there's no proof, if you're first working on something new, fine. But if you've been doing it for a little bit, the world's saying back to you like, hey, the physical universe doesn't lie. You don't have that because you're not exchanging that energy or because you're not actually doing what you think you're doing. You may be showing up and doing it, but you're not being that person, which is really key. So we're going to actually look at some of the premise with this. So we talked about this one last week, which was are 15 minutes in the morning to get not only intention, but to get very, very clear about what am I going to pay attention to all day? What am I actually going to pay attention to? So how can I honor remembering what my plan is, what my strategy is, and how can I do that in a way that's joyful and not stressful and heavy and feeling forced, right? How can I actually go through my day and be happy that I'm able to pay attention to the plan that I set out and not feel like I'm missing out on other things? How can I be committed to my discipline work? And after I do that, how can I just allow those things to come and not make it more difficult or not try to force things to happen in our life? Rob, I'm sure you have lots of circumstances, I know I do as well, where things, you know, seem like it was like the world shattering, world ending, that actually turned out to be really good things for my life. I just had to allow them to happen.
Yeah, I think that so often we look past our struggles rather than looking within our struggles. And if you can look within your struggles, you'll find what that reason was for the struggle, so you can move forward and really build upon your strengths that you already have and getting to exactly where it is that you're headed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and allowing it is hard. Like, I know for years, even still, when I'll start to get stressed about something or say, okay, like this matters, we have to jump on this, I have to remember, like, I actually have a pattern interrupt for me, and it's right away. Do you have faith in your plan? Do you have faith you're doing the right things? And as soon as I say it, again, I talked about this last week, but I think it's really important. As soon as I say it, it's like, yeah, I do. And I can relax and my shoulders go down because I get tense, right? I'll go like, oh, we have to do something. So my shoulders go down, I slow down breathing, and it's such a peaceful feeling, and it's so internal. It's this beautiful confidence that's taken me years to develop that is this, it's okay. This is happening for a reason. The right people always show up. The right opportunities always show up. And sometimes, if you're like me, I've called out for some pretty big things for myself, for pretty big changes, pretty big opportunities. And that sometimes created an environment where my life was just kind of shaken up and like thrown back at me. And it looked like it was in shambles, but it was because it was giving me the space to move forward and pursue things that were important to me. And I called out and asked for those things. So be careful what you ask for. I asked for the right things. I'm still happy. I just didn't really know exactly how difficult they would be. So life's a bit easier now, that even things that used to, I would have been up at night, not been able to sleep. Now I can say, yes, that's okay. The right things are coming there. You have to have faith, because the stress, the experience is going to be what it's going to be. The level of stress and how I perceive it, that's my art. That's my job, is to be at joy with it. Just to go out there and say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And even if it seems hard or like it's not going to work out, if I can hold joy and I can take that with grace, that's probably the best thing I can do for my energy and my health, and to allow other opportunities to flow in. Nobody gets every single opportunity, right? And nor should they. Not all opportunities are for us, that's for sure. So with that, again, this part, I'm going a bit quicker because I want to review to get to some of the new aspects before we run out of time. So when we're in cause, we have peace around us, right? We have results, we have creation. And the reason for that is when we're in cause, we're almost always taking action, because leaders take action. When something's happening around us, I can focus on the obstacles, or I can focus on the opportunities that come from those same obstacles. And that's the difference between a leader and an average mindset player. That's the big difference. One is saying, because of these obstacles, how can I take action and create something that's positive for my life? And the other is saying, oh, nothing's going well, nothing's going good for me, nothing's going to work out. And therefore, they're in effect. So they're actually creating extra drama, extra excuses, reasons are excuses, and they're feeling more repetitious. And why? Because if I'm in effect, I don't feel like I can change anything. I feel like I just have to keep on keeping on, right? Oh, another day, everything's fine. Because if I'm in effect, who gives me a promotion? Who gives me a change in life? Who? That magic people outside of me who are going to spin my life. Maybe if I get laid off, maybe if I get fired, right? For a lot of us on this call who are self-employed, that's not really going to be an option for you. Maybe you don't hit minimum standards and it shakes things up. And for some of us, it's the best thing that could happen. because it was a shakeup. Get yourself in groove, get back in cause, do what you need to do to be on the right journey, on the right path for you. Because if I'm in effect, I'm trusting everybody else around me to have my best intentions at heart and give me the best opportunities for me. And the sad thing is, leaders, it's true, build other leaders. Leaders always see potential in others. They always throw opportunities out to others. But you know what? It's a really small percentage of people who show up and take those opportunities. And why? Because the majority of everybody's in effect. So to be able to rely on people around you to say, oh, you should do this or you should pursue this. First of all, if you're in effect and someone gives you an opportunity, you probably won't even take it because you'll be too stuck in, oh, but it's everyone else's fault. Why should I do anything about it? They should all do something about it. If you're in cause, you're already taking action. It's so vitally important. If we're not taking action on our best interests, you're going to fall victim to relying on everybody else. And if you're blaming, criticizing, complaining, how many people do you think are going to try to promote you? I don't know, Rob, what do you think? How many people want to promote people who are in that mindset?
Zero.
You're laughing at me, but I know it's true. Like, I'm being a bit blunt with it, but I think it's important. Again, like CEOs, people who run companies, presidents, right, prime ministers, these people are not put in this position because they were just promoted out of nowhere. It's because obviously they were already exhibiting habits, mindset, choices, behaviors of, hopefully, now I shouldn't have said president, that's going to be in a bad place, but anyway, of a prime minister, of a CEO, of somebody running a company, right? They're already exhibiting those things. So they're in cause, and therefore they're going to get those leadership opportunities. So very important. If I find myself complaining, blaming, justifying, otherwise feeling sorry for myself, I'm in effect. I can't create anything good in effect for myself. I only get to keep on keeping on and stay as comfortable as possible. That's it. The only way to get out of effect is to take complete responsibility for everything that is or is not working in my life. And I can tell you, I mean, I've had people who absolutely fight that notion, like it's overwhelming for them, it's fearful for them, because the idea of taking complete responsibility means they have to let go of some things. So for me, I know if I'm really suffering with having to take responsibility for something, it's because I haven't cleared something, I haven't forgiven somebody, I haven't gotten closure for something, or I haven't taken the lesson from something. I don't know about you at home, but if I can find a lesson from something, I usually am okay to say, yeah, that's why that happened. I can understand that. I can let that go. Maybe the lesson is you shouldn't be friends with people you can't trust. You shouldn't work with people that you don't have values aligned with them, right? Maybe the lesson is that you need to focus, like I'm saying some of mine, obviously, that I've had, but you need to focus on making sure you're renewing your energy, you're protecting your energy. That's why these things happen, right? There's always something that can come and be taken from it. So Rob, what would you say? Why do you notice, what do you think are the main reasons? It might be what I just said, but why people get stuck in effect, why it's so scary for them to take responsibility of everything in their lives?
I think that often we fall into complacency, and when we fall into that, we just let the snowball grow more and more and more. And I think it's really important to understand that we all end up in effect probably at least once a day, maybe several times a day. And I think it's really, really important. I know that you'd mentioned it last week, that it's okay to fall into effect. It's just really important that you realize that you're there and how you get out of effect and back to cause. And like you said, learning from those things to take them forward with you is such a critical part of that process between the cause and effect. Just bear with us 1 minute. I think we're having some technical difficulties. Well, Kathleen gets that sorted out. I'll still talk about the cause and effect, because I think it's really, really important that we identify those things are going to happen in our life on a regular basis. It could be absolutely anything. So when you're finding yourself making excuses or blaming or whatever it is, kind of take a step back for a moment and really ask yourself, what is it that I need to do in order to get out of this mess that I'm in? Is it something that I'm continually doing that is bringing this kind of shitstorm towards me, or is it the way that I'm kind of leading my life? Is it the way that I'm talking to people? Is it the way that I'm interacting with the people around me or in my business? Really take a time to kind of self-reflect and look at how you can kind of get out of that and back to cause. Welcome back, Kathleen.
Thank you. Apparently, I'm glad that it froze, and I thought you had went out, but it was actually here. The whole internet went out. So, all right. Sorry about that. I'm glad that it continued on because it kicked me out there. Okay, so let's back up here. We're way ahead. Okay, yeah, so absolutely. So really important to get back, as you said, into cause, into that leadership place. So as we move forward, those were just a couple of the things that are going to help us with energy and with our mental focus. So we're going to move on to a couple of more. Relationships, really important. 5 keys of building trust. And this, of course, applies to personal relationships. It applies to clients as well. Like it applies in a sales environment as well. So 5 keys of building trust. Some of these, I think sometimes, you know, people can really overlook these and think, oh yeah, you know, this is kind of obvious. But the thing is here again, it's an awareness. And if you feel like you know something or somebody said it to you 500 times, I'd say really like the awareness is, okay, I have heard that 500 times. Am I applying it? Or yeah, I am having, you know, difficulty with a coworker, you know, with a loved one, with a family member. Am I actually thinking about these 5 things? Because if I'm in cause, I'm taking action. So I'm doing things that I know would help the situation, right? So 1 is brightness of future. What do we have to look forward to together? So I know in my work with teams, brightness of future is really important for many reasons, for attracting talent to the team, for retention, and really importantly for satisfaction and happiness levels for the people who are on the team. So what are we looking forward to together, which often comes down to, you know, one thing is a vision statement, really critical with brightness of future. What are we trying to build together? Other would be goals, right? Are we on track with our goals? Is there any, you know, sometimes as teams get much, much bigger, they'll have, you know, incentive to reach their big team goal. There's so many ways that you can do that. And, you know, award ceremonies, I know for a lot of the teams we work with, coming to the summit is something to look forward to. They all come together, they stay there. It's definitely a synergy and bonding time. So what are we looking forward to? And obviously, you know, for couples or with children, I mean, it could be vacation, it could be something special you're doing this summer. It could be, hey, every Friday we have pizza night, we watch movies, and I look forward to it because it's our high value time, right? So what is our brightness of future? That's going to help us to build a relationship and build trust. Number 2, without hope in the future, you have no power in the present. This is really key. When people are trying to build something and they don't feel like it's going to come to fruition, or their commitment levels are escaping them a little bit, like they're not as committed as they need to be, basically we go back to, okay, what are we hoping for? What are we working towards? What's that vision that we're so committed to it that is going to energize us? And even if we're exhausted, we're going to get up and do what we need to do. So it's really key that if we have any hope in the future, we don't feel energized now. So if we have a seller client or a buyer client and they're having a hard time going through the process, for them, they might lose sight of that end game, right? Why are we doing all of this? What's it for? Why are we willing to put in this work? That's very energizing to people, and you can easily disconnect. Okay, what are we working towards? And all of a sudden, you have no power in the present. If I have no power in the present, I'm definitely not putting it towards building anything that's going to be positive or sustainable. Frequency of interaction. When you have any type of new relationship, sales specifically, for again, the realtors on this, frequency of interaction is key. When we have a new client, they do need to hear from you more. they do need to build that rapport with you. They are going to have more questions from you because they're trying to establish authority and whether they can trust your information. And it's the same thing in personal relationships. If you don't have a bit more of that frequency and connection, you're not going to build enough rapport to be able to sustain, you know, a couple months not talking. Like there's always those quotes about, you know, those friends that you cannot talk to for a year, and then you talk to them as if no time has passed. I know for me in my business, I do work a lot. My values are very specific when it comes to building the business, travel time, family time. Those are my key focuses. So sometimes I do go longer than I'd like without talking to friends because I have a small pool of very close friends. That's okay. They understand me. They know it's not a personal slight. We're always there for each other. But now we don't need that high level of frequency of interaction. When we were first connected, we did. Otherwise, we would be friends at this point. Small agreements. Rob, what do you think? Small agreements is actually a huge topic in and of itself. Rob, what are your thoughts on small agreements and trust?
I think that, like you said, it's a large topic. I think we could probably do an entire session on it. But yeah. I think small agreements are kind of what builds trust in general. I think that's the small way of being able to say it. And I think that they're really important in order to build your rapport, build your trust, build your relationship as tight as you would like it to be, whether it's with, you know, somebody that you meet and you're going to deal with in a short period of time, or it's somebody that you're going to build a relationship with and continue to use throughout that time. Those small agreements are really, really important in order to kind of mesh the trust between two people.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're breaking small agreements, a client, first of all, is going to notice it loud and clear. I think real estate is unbelievably bad for underrating how important small agreements are. Oh, I got busy, they're not going to notice. Remember, the majority of the population, personality-wise, they notice loud and clear. They're just not going to tell you. But guess when you're going to find out? When the deal's closed and now they don't talk to you, and they list their house with somebody else next time. That could often be behind it, or they just stop interacting with you because they don't trust you and they bow out of the process. So very important to have people around us that we can actually trust to keep their word. I know for me, it's something I always watch for. If you don't keep your word, you at least get back to me and tell me why, or tell me you couldn't do it, or at least tell me a larger time frame for when you're going to get back to me. That's totally cool too. But I can't trust when you're trying to do big, important goals, important visions. When you actually have a lot on the line, you really have to ask yourself, who's around you? And can you trust them to follow through if you're betting on them providing whatever they said they would? In this market, for some people, their trust and level of comfort to engage and purchase or sell with you, it is vital that they can trust, they can rely on your information and you to follow through. So very important. And I know for sure when it comes to relationships and any of the books you're going to read, the counseling, when it comes to personal relationships or with children, it's a huge thing of trust as well, that we can rely on those small agreements. Like we know it's not really the empty toilet paper roll, right? Or the upside down toilet paper that's causing someone to get a divorce. It's the small agreements that are between two people. It's the same with clients, friends, spouse, whatever it is. And rapport. Of course, if we're looking to have trust with somebody, how can we possibly do that if we're not in rapport with them? Rapport means that we understand each other. I understand their expectations. I understand what they're looking for. I understand what they're looking for from me, right? What piece of me is important to them at that time? Like, are they looking for an aggressive real estate agent and they're really expecting that from me? That's where I have rapport with them at that time. So if we don't have rapport, basically any small problem is going to be a massive hurdle in communication. If I have rapport, I can overcome small issues very easily. I can even overcome big issues much more easily, whereas the other person is going to be out of the game, right? Rapport is so vital. And obviously, if I'm trying to build trust with somebody, I need to make it all about them. Because the more I show them I understand their scenario or where they're coming from, the more they're going to trust me, because they feel like, okay, I get this person. And I want them to trust me in a sincere way. So talking to them about a situation in a way that's all about them shows them I'm actually considering their viewpoint. I'm considering their perspective, their model of the world, and that we might be different. And beautiful thing for negotiations. How much easier is it to come to a successful outcome if I already am thinking about and putting myself in your shoes and knowing what you benefit from this, and then I'm also looking at what I need on my side of things. It makes it so much easier to negotiate. So people who negotiate very well are always trying to see it from the other person's perspective, both because they see the strengths and the weaknesses of the other person negotiating wise, right? Like wisdom is having enough bandwidth to consider both opinions, both options, both needs. Really, really important. Anything else you want to add, Rob, with 5 keys of building trust?
No, the only thing I would say on rapport is it's very important to, like you said, the negotiations, but also for those of the people who are selling. I think it's a massive, massive part of the selling process in order to gain all those other things that you talked about. Rapport is essentially bringing all those things together into one whole.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can say, you know, when I was younger, trying to, not that I'm not young, but younger and trying to find opportunities, had to throw that in there, trying to find opportunities. I think it's true that maybe I did work in professional manner with some people that I didn't trust. I mean, I can think back to some lawyers that my gut instinct was always like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was, first of all, I didn't think it was about me. I didn't think they understood where I was coming from. I didn't think we had enough rapport that they really knew what I was expecting, but I wasn't at a point where I could clearly communicate because I just didn't know. I was kind of prey to these people who were supposed to be specialists in some really important situations in my life, both business and personal. And I look back to it and I just think, wow, if I had have known what I know now, I would have made changes a lot quicker. But looking back, I was in effect because I didn't realize that, hey, like if you don't feel good about this and you don't feel like they understand you and you don't see them keeping small agreements, which they weren't, that I needed to take action. That would have been being in cause. But I kept thinking, oh, it'll get better. Oh, you have to trust them. But really, the 5 keys of building trust just weren't in place. And I couldn't really put my finger on it. I just knew something felt a little bit wrong. And business opportunities as well. Like at the end of the day, I know my beliefs are if I can't trust somebody to work with them, it's not worth the opportunity. There were times in my life where I didn't understand that. I was trying to build business and kind of thought, hey, an opportunity is something to pursue. But, you know, it's a growing and learning experience, right? I wouldn't build something now with my name behind it with some of those same people. But at the time, I did learn a lot. I did get a lot of experience. But my point of telling you this, there are warning signs when trust isn't in place. So if your gut's feeling off, go to this list, right? Or if you're having trouble with a client, like a new client or a family member, go to this list and say, hey, where can I take action? Where can I make this better? And if you don't care about taking action, maybe it's not as much of a priority for you as you thought it was, right? Or you're stuck in effect. I'll leave you to assess that. So what we're focusing on expands. How many thoughts do we have in one day? We have 60,000 or more. So there's a lot going on in our brain all the time. And of that, we're really not consciously aware of too much of it, right? So basically we have this little voice that's driving the show. And sometimes we're not aware of how much it's affecting us, right? There's always 2, 3, 5, 20 stories that we could look at in any one situation. So I know, for example, sometimes if things are difficult, again, with children, sometimes people, it can be easy to say like, oh, I just don't have a good relationship with that child. Oh, I just can't communicate well with them. We just don't get along. Or, oh, I just don't like my mother-in-law. We'll never see eye to eye, right? Things that happen every day. Those thoughts, you're actually telling your brain to look for ways to prove that those are true to you, which you really want to be careful with it because that's a very powerful thing to have your brain working on your behalf. Right? If you want to keep reinforcing that I can't get along with this person, there's nothing I can do about it, or I'm not successful, or I can't do anything, be very, very careful. Because as many people have probably read and seen before, our brain is a fantastic servant. It is not a fantastic master, which means if I tell it something positive to work on, it's going to work on it. If I tell it something that's detrimental to me or negative to me, it's also going to work on finding reasons to prove me right for that as well. Which, if you think about it, is a really scary premise for people to understand how important their thoughts are. Your thoughts are, again, that mirror That's going to be everything around you, right? What you're thinking about is going to create what you say. It's going to create what I do, and then it's going to create my habits. It's age-old wisdom, right? Going to create my habits, and my habits are going to be a reflection of my life. What opportunities I have, my health, my energy levels, my prosperity, whether it's time, energy, or financial. All those things start with how I think about any particular situation. Every decision you make comes from your beliefs, and your beliefs come from what you think about. You can choose to consider that something else might be true if the results in your life are in our lives. And Rob, I'm sure you probably have lots you could add on that, but anything specific you want to add on what you focus on expands.
Yeah, and I think what you resist persists. So I think you hit it on the head there when you said that our mind or our unconscious mind can't really depict between something that's positive or negative. Yeah. And it's that old saying about if I tell you don't think of a blue tree, first thing your mind does is think of that blue tree before it goes on to something else. So I think that that's a really important thing. The things that we're thinking of, whether they're good or the bad, are going to expand. So why not focus more on the positive part of it? It's all that whole glass half empty or glass half full kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and even that, I think sometimes when one thing goes wrong, people are like, oh, the glass is totally empty and nothing's going right and this is horrible. And it's like, wait a minute, if we actually add this up, how much actually is going right? And often it's like 60 to 80%, pretty much always, that's going right. And then it's okay, well, what could we do to get up to the rest? Or are we going to wipe the whole slate clean because 20 to 40% isn't going the way that we want it to, right? Our brains, like as much as people will say, I think of it as children, right? When we were kids, our parents used to hide the stuff from Santa Claus, right? So for years, they'd hide it different places, but I was pretty good at knowing what was going on in the house. So of course, as a kid, they're like, don't go into the office or don't go into this place or, don't unwrap your presents. So what does your brain do? We're just like when we were kids, our brain's like, what's in the office? Right? Why do I want to go in there? So I remember one night in the middle of the night, sneaking in and going into the closet in the office, and they had a blanket over all the presents. So sure enough, I think I can quietly pull down the blanket. What happens? All the presents fall, huge noise, middle of the night. And I remember my mom like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, nothing, right? Nothing's happening. And as much as we think, oh, yeah, but that's children, right? We're not children. Our brain works the exact same way. So as soon as we're looking for something, saying, don't do that, we're looking towards it. Your brain's curious. So why not set up things positive? They're like, hey, what could happen if we did that? Or what is going well? Instead of, hey, don't go towards something. Like you said, what you resist persists. Anything we're not supposed to touch, we're not supposed to do. It's like we're tempting ourselves to want that because we're limiting it. And often it's because there's a lesson on the other side of it, for sure. So yeah, I think that's really important. What you're resisting is going to persist. Business owners are strategic. They take action. They make choices so that they can overcome problems. Solving problems is what we're doing in business. That's what we do. The majority of our success is because daily we're solving problems for clients, or we're solving problems for people we're recruiting, or training problems. Running a family is the same thing. People who expect there's going to be some problems and make decisions quickly are in leadership roles. They're going to see their business as more successful, which means we feel more satisfied, right? Really, really key. So E plus R equals O. This is probably one of the most important equations that I work with any group training, with clients, with myself in my life. And that is that if you're aware of what your outcome is, then you have the power to manage your response. And when you get into this, it's so massive, right? What you wear, what you say, your tonality, where you meet with somebody, where you have a family meeting, where you have a business meeting, everything, so many variables are actually in our control if we know what we want. If we don't know what we want, then we can't pick the variables. You never get to be powerful until you know the outcome. And I would say you know why you want that outcome, because that's going to energize you. So it's a beautiful thing to say, okay, what specific outcome do I want? All right, now I have a client who's shown up. Or now I have, a potential business opportunity. Or now I could decide which sport or nutrition or exercise to invest in, whatever. I've got an event. E is an event, a person, place, or a thing. Now I'm going to have two options. I'm either going to react, which 99% of the population is going to do. They're going to feel a certain way based on past experiences, and they're going to react. And it's not like they're doing anything Okay, let's see if we are back.
Sorry about that, guys. I have no idea what happened. My screen froze and then kicked me out as well.
Weird. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if this is actually a problem with Zoom, because it's, yeah, kicking us both out. This is the first time it's done this on this platform. So definitely, obviously, you know, kind of interesting point for it to do it right on this, because again, I mean, the outcome of these calls, the whole purpose of Core Pursuit is to focus on leadership, mindset, and communication. And I mean, sometimes we don't get the best scenarios with which to deal with life. We don't get the best scenarios that we may want. But at the end of the day, I mean, the outcome is to be able to not change what's around us, but change how we're able to deal with that. And I'd say for sure, I mean, having the understanding that if I know what I want, I can be powerful. If I know I want this to be, you know, a positive experience. The first time we ran Core Pursuit, we had actually, I would say, a lot of technical difficulties. We were on a different platform. I wasn't a big fan of the platform, so we took action. We started testing something. We changed it right away. But we got a lot of feedback of several brokers actually came up to me at an event I was speaking at and said, you know, like, we know it didn't go perfectly, but we were amazed at how many of our agents came up and were so impressed with how you and your team dealt with the situation. And that's because end of the day, the outcome is going to be, you know, we want something to give you guys immense value. We want to bring you tools that we use in our lives, but how we respond to that is vital. And when we're under stress and things are happening, things don't always go perfectly, but we always have the room to choose, right? We have the room to choose how we respond to things and what we say, and that's going to bring you towards an outcome you want, and reacting will equally bring you towards an outcome you don't want. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. If something's said to me and it's getting under my skin, it's probably not a good time for me to be reacting. If I take some time, I take that, some people call it that miracle pause or power pause, whatever it is, but it's taking that moment to really look at this and say, wait, what's important to me? What do I really want here? What's more important? Is this argument more important, or is this relationship more important? Is this client more important? Is making sure that my client gets the best outcome when dealing with a difficult other salesperson or other agent? Is that more important? And that is a very powerful key or card to have in our pocket to understand how to discipline ourselves and to show restraint, not in a way that we're not being conscious of how we feel or what we want, but showing restraint in a way that my brain might take me sideways and might say, hey, this is a good time to be angry or be frustrated or be stressed or be sad, and say, well, what's the outcome I'm really looking for here? How far have I really gone? What's the worst case scenario? If somebody's yelling at me, they're swearing at me, they're upset, and I'm 100% committed to having a good relationship with that person, I can say that how I'm going to respond, because my brain is so focused on having a good relationship, is going to probably save the relationship or come as close as possible. If my brain is focused on what did they say to me, and that was rude and they insulted me, it's a coin toss. Who knows? And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to bet my most vital components of my life on a coin toss. It's really important to me that I know the outcome I'm trying to go for. Rob, anything to add there? And I think we'll end after this because obviously we're a little bit over time trying to get back on, and our recording will be interesting from today. We'll have 3 recordings. We'll merge them.
The only thing I was going to say, and actually I'm going to talk about it in the next core belief, is you talk about that when we're constantly having an issue within ourselves and kind of running through that in our head, it often comes down to not what is the problem with the other people, but what does this have to do with me? And often that problem that you're experiencing isn't even really about that. It has something to do with something else. So we're going to talk about that next week.
Yeah, that's really powerful because again, with clients or family members, I mean, often when they're upset or they're stressed, They might be presenting it in a way that it's about a home purchase or it's about a price if it's a client, right? But often there's something else that's really going on, and that's just an outlet for frustration. And if we're reacting, there's something else going on with us. So essentially you have two people who are internally telling two totally different stories. They have two totally different reasons for being stressed, and they're just throwing that stress at each other. And if you actually break it down, often it's nothing to do with the other person, like particularly in a service environment. Sometimes it has something to do with you, but often it doesn't. There's something else. They're stressed about the situation. Change creates massive stress. So looking at it and saying, wait a minute, why am I reacting to this? What does this have to do with me? What other choices do I have? Why did I react instead of, slowing down and serving the client and talking to them? Why did I get my back up? What does that have to do with me? Where is that coming from? Really, really powerful in dealing with stress and increasing levels of service. So I'm happy you're going to be covering that, Rob. I know that would be phenomenal. So 2 weeks from now, Rob is going to be going deep into that, the power of choice, stress. What does this have to do with me? Which is an amazing question to always make sure you're in what? Cause. If you want to figure out, am I in cause? Ask yourself that question. What does this have to do with me? Instantly, you're back in a place where, okay, wait, if any piece of this has something to do with me, I have a way that I can take action. So on that note, we're going to wish you guys a fantastic 2 weeks on Core Pursuit. We do have an Awaken Your Potential weekend coming up. May 6th and 7th. Something today is wrong with talking. May 6th and 7th is going to be Awaken Your Potential NLP weekend. I know we already have some clients signed up for that. It's going to be fantastic. And that is your introduction to mindset and NLP. And obviously, I think you're going to be getting some news from Rob over the next couple weeks on some meditation and visualization resources. So do watch for that. Probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to hear from us with that material as well. So have a fantastic day. Cheers. Thank you again, Rob. And make sure you turn in for 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, it's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.